Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking the haunting allure of Daphne du Maurier's absolute masterpiece, and the intense behind-the-scenes Hollywood drama that totally reshaped it for the silver screen. We're going to explore how an unforgettable psychological novel collided head-on with the massive egos of 1940s Hollywood, and how strict censorship ended up changing the story's very core. Let's get right into it.
We have to begin with one of the most iconic opening lines in all of literature. Last night, I dreamt I went to Manderley again. It's just brilliant, right? Instantly, this enchanting opening draws us directly into the deep, psychological waters of our unnamed narrator's memories. It sets this beautifully melancholic tone right off the bat, establishing that Manderley, the grand English estate where the entire story unfolds, is practically a living, breathing character itself, lingering powerfully in the narrator's subconscious.
And this perfectly illustrates the genre we're dealing with here, the classic Gothic tradition. Daphne du Maurier had this deep, genuine fascination with psychology, identity, and the incredibly dark secrets of the past. Her work wasn't just some simple romance. It was dark. It explored how our present is constantly, relentlessly haunted by what came before, and she used these atmospheric, deeply unsettling settings to build just incredible suspense.
Okay, Section 1. The plot unveils, uncovering Manderley's secrets. So, the plot of this story moves swiftly. We kick things off with a whirlwind romance in Monte Carlo, where our unnamed narrator, who's working as a companion to an elderly socialite, meets the wealthy widower Maxim de Winter. They have a quick courtship, they get married, and then they arrive at the oppressive, memory-filled halls of Manderley. And honestly, this changes everything. The narrator is just crushed by her own perceived inadequacy compared to Maxim's first wife, the fabulous Rebecca. And this feeling is heavily exacerbated by the incredibly intimidating housekeeper, Mrs. Danvers. The tension just bubbles and bubbles until suddenly a sunken boat is discovered in the bay containing Rebecca's body, and that propels us straight into a shocking murder inquest that threatens to ruin absolutely everything.
Now, the sheer volume of twists du Maurier packs in here is staggering. The real shock comes when Maxim completely shatters the illusion of his perfect first marriage. He reveals to our narrator that he actually shot Rebecca. She was manipulative, she was cruel, and in a fit of rage, he killed her and covered it up as a tragic sailing accident. During the inquest, deliberate holes are found in the sunken boat, clearly pointing to murder. But Maxim is miraculously saved when a visit to a London doctor reveals Rebecca actually had terminal cancer, which provided a totally plausible motive for suicide, so Maxim is cleared. But as he returns home, Manderley mysteriously goes up in flames.
Moving on to Section 2. A Hollywood power struggle, Selznick versus Hitchcock.
Behind the scenes of the movie adaptation, there was a massive clash of the titans. On one side, you have producer David O. Selznick. He desperately wanted a highly faithful adaptation. He bought the rights and wanted a direct, completely honest translation for the fans, defending the integrity of the novel. On the other side, director Alfred Hitchcock. Hitchcock's initial treatment was, well, according to Selznick, a distorted, vulgarized version that swapped out du Maurier's charming scenes for old-fashioned movie tropes and completely misplaced humor. Selznick was having none of it. He immediately rejected it and sent Hitchcock straight back to the drawing board.
And what's wild is how brilliantly art imitated life behind the scenes. Just look at the parallels here. In the story, the fictional narrator is plagued by inadequacy, totally isolated by the ghost of Rebecca. Well, on set, the actress playing her, Joan Fontaine, felt exactly the same way. She was young, inexperienced, and Hitchcock used this brutal divide-and-conquer strategy on her. He deliberately isolated her on set. He even told her that her co-star, Laurence Olivier, actually wanted his real-life lover Vivien Leigh for the part instead of her. And Olivier's cold treatment of Fontaine absolutely backed this up. This tactic directly fueled the intense, nervous, fraught energy you see from her character on screen.
Hitchcock also masterfully translated the narrator's psychological displacement right into the physical set design. He used these oversized pieces of furniture and just enormous flower arrangements. He even positioned doorknobs at shoulder or head height, so when Fontaine entered a room, she literally appeared like a child, completely out of her depth in this intimidating grown-up world. He also filmed her walking through the interior in a deliberately disjointed way to mirror her mental dislocation. And for the exterior, they built this rambling, exaggerated Gothic miniature that felt confusing and mystifying. Through all this, Manderley truly became a character itself.
Which brings us to Section 3. Surviving the Hays Code, Hollywood Censorship.
So, pose this question to yourself for a second. How exactly do you get away with a literal murder on the silver screen in 1940s Hollywood? Imagine your favorite book's ending having to be completely rewritten just to appease a censor. Well, the short answer is, you don't get away with it.
To bypass the incredibly strict censors of the time, Hitchcock was forced to fundamentally change Maxim's character. In the book, Maxim cold-bloodedly shoots Rebecca right through the heart and explicitly states he feels absolutely no remorse. But in the film version, wow, it's totally different. Maxim barely admits to striking her in a brief moment of madness. Instead, Rebecca trips as she starts toward him and accidentally hits her head on a piece of ship's tackle in the boathouse. The entire story shifts from a man hiding a calculated murder to a man simply hiding a tragic accident.
The man behind this drastic change was Hays Code Administrator Joseph Breen. The production code at the time strictly forbade letting a murderer go unpunished. Because Maxim ultimately avoids jail time in the plot, he simply couldn't be a murderer on screen. It was against the rules. Furthermore, Breen attempted to eliminate any undertones of illicit desires. He specifically targeted the intense, obsessive devotion the housekeeper, Mrs. Danvers, had for the late Rebecca, sternly warning that any suggestion of a quote-unquote perverted relationship would mean the film wouldn't be approved for release.
So to actually get the film made, Hitchcock had to rely on some very clever bypass tactics. He introduced the accidental death to save Maxim's character, sure, but he sneakily subverted Breen's rules anyway when it came to Mrs. Danvers. Through Judith Anderson's completely mesmerizing, eerie performance where she rarely walks but rather just glides silently into rooms, and through a sensual caressing of Rebecca's sheer nightgowns, that forbidden subtext remained incredibly powerful on screen. Finally, the ambiguous burning of Manderley from the novel was replaced with a definitive arson committed by a mad Mrs. Danvers, ending with that iconic visual of the burning R on Rebecca's nightgown case. It leaves Rebecca as the most powerful figure in the film, even from beyond the grave.
And finally, Section 4, The Burning Legacy, Manderley's Lasting Impact.
This incredible interplay between psychological Gothic themes, changing societal norms, and 1940s Hollywood censorship is exactly why this text remains a massive staple for literature students worldwide. I mean, analyzing the struggle for identity, the feminist undertones, and the shifting class dynamics continues to be an essential part of rigorous curriculums like the Cambridge IGCSE today. The depth of Manderley's secrets genuinely provides endless material for exploration.
As we close out this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. Does Hitchcock's censored, Academy Award-winning adaptation truly capture du Maurier's masterpiece? Interestingly, even Hitchcock himself was famously dismissive of the film later on in his career, calling it a mere novelette and not a true Hitchcock picture. Yet it stands as an absolute atmospheric triumph. Still, you have to wonder, does Manderley still hold secrets waiting to be uncovered only within the original pages? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep seeking out the mysteries of the past.